Among Bible scholars, a two-source theory solves what is known as the synoptic problem. It accounts for three Gospels often sharing both the wording and arrangement of pericopes, that is, of incidents, stories, or self-contained passages. Sometimes there is high verbatim agreement, other times low verbatim agreement. The Gospels in question share so much that they are called synoptic, which means seeing together. The two-source theory helps us understand differences and similarities between the three. Mark and Luke have verbatim passages, and Mark and Matthew have verbatim passages. For these passages, Matthew and Luke, both written around 85 AD, did not use the other as a source, but instead relied on Mark. Mark is from around 70 AD. Marcan Priority is the term used for Mark's Gospel being written earlier than the other surviving Gospels, with Matthew and Luke later using Mark as a source. To say Mark's Gospel was the first ever written may be misleading. Mark's Gospel was possibly influenced by earlier Gospels that did not survive. Verbatim passages are only possible if one language is used. All Gospels, even John's, are in Greek. Scholars used to wonder if Matthew's Gospel was originally in Hebrew, but that cannot be true. If it were, verbatim passages could not exist. But Matthew and Luke share some near verbatim passages not found in Mark. So Matthew and Luke had a second source not known to Mark. Scholars use the name Q for that hypothetical second source, a collection of sayings repeated by Jesus. Teachers tend to repeat key ideas so students can easily recall what was taught. Q is short for Quelle, German for source. Q is a lost document. Presumably, early Christians saw no need to preserve the Q source since the sayings had been incorporated into Matthew and Luke. The real names of the Gospel writers are unknown. It may be naive to assume that each Gospel had a single author producing a final text. It is more likely that schools of writers were involved. The Christian communities that produced Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John were probably distant from each other, their locations, along with the writers' names, being unknown to scholars.